it's been a very, very long time since we last spoke about it, but today, we are welcoming back Need for Speed. So let's not waste any time, let's jump straight in to Need for Speed 2019. For those of you who don't know, Need for Speed 2019 is actually confirmed by the guys over at EA, and that's really all they said. We have nothing else to go off of. The only two things I can sort of like try to guess is one, I would imagine it's going to be an open world game because that's sort of just the things the Ghost Games does. And two, it's probably going to be releasing around November 2019, sort of in line with the previous Need for Speed games. Speaking of the previous Need for Speed games, as you might have seen, they weren't received super well by critics. Although they were a lot of fun and they actually sold quite well, the games weren't getting the best sort of response from people. So with Need for Speed 2019 on the horizon, I was thinking, what makes a good racing game? What makes the perfect racing game? And what does Need for Speed need to do specifically to be the best racing game that they can be? So, as you might have seen if you follow me over on Twitter, I went to Twitter and I asked you guys what your favorite part of a racing game is. So I gathered up all of the responses and I put them into today's video, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So what exactly does Need for Speed 2019 need to do to be successful? Let's get into it. So without a doubt, the #1 response I got that you guys need to see in a car game is customization, which was kind of surprising actually, but totally does make sense. Being able to make your car look and drive the way you want, whether it be like with stickers, vinyls, paint jobs, tuning, performance customization, visual customization, all of that is huge in the bond that you build with one, the car, and two, how you experience that car in the world. And although Need for Speed has done an incredible job in the past with visual customization, tuning, and painting, in Need for Speed Payback, the performance customization, I will be honest, was absolute garbage. Like say for example you wanted to take a slow car and turn it into a fast car, it would literally be easier to go to a shop in real life, choose the parts you want, get them fitted to your car, than it was to do it in Need for Speed. It was a silly system that overcomplicated the process of upgrading a car. Need for Speed 2015 actually did a much better job of it and just going in and choosing like, oh, I want that part, and that part, and that part. So much simpler. That's what it is in real life, that's what it should be in the game. It's not just about the customization of the cars though, it's also about the cars themselves. A lot of you guys were saying, I just want to be able to drive around in that dream car that I've been dreaming about for years and will probably never get to do it in real life. And again, that makes total sense, and Need for Speed already does a fantastic job at that. And I mean, hey, not every single car in the game needs to have huge customizations. Sure, for example, if you have, let's say, like a Nissan S15 or like a 350Z, for example, I want to have a bunch of customization options for those, but say I jump into like a Ford GT or a McLaren P1, I don't really expect there to be like a bunch of wide body kits or stuff, but the fact that Need for Speed does it anyways is amazing. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that the cars and the customization of those cars plays a huge factor in just about any car game, and Need for Speed already does a great job of it, but I feel like could be improved just a little bit. One of the other things I got from you guys a lot was that the racing inside of these games, like when you're actually physically doing a race, the racing needs to be good and intense. For example, racing offline in Need for Speed Payback, I just felt cheated a lot of the time. For example, I'll already be doing like 220 miles an hour and a car will go flying past, and then suddenly that same car who went flying past will just slow down and I'll overtake him and catch him up again. It's just like, I get what they're doing in terms of like rubber banding and trying to make the races close, but it just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like I've earned anything. And then in terms of the online racing in Need for Speed, it was just a shit show of tire smoke, sparks, and crashing into each other. So that definitely wasn't the best experience either. One thing I actually found very strange that not a lot of you guys actually mentioned was the actual physics in the game. I find physics in any racing game to be one of the biggest turn on or turn off factors for me. Say for example, the Grand Tour game, which you've probably seen me play on the channel. I love the concept, the idea is amazing, the storyline is super cool, and it's a super unique game. However, the physics are just lacking. Every car feels like mush. I never feel truly in control of the car, and it just gets very messy very quickly. And although I absolutely love the game, there's definitely a little part of me every single time I get behind the wheel of a car and just makes me go, ugh. So in terms of Need for Speed, the basic physics and the basic platform is already there, and I do enjoy it quite a bit, but I do think there are definitely some improvements that they could make. For example, I don't actually know if this is true or if it's just something I feel when I play the game. The idea of set maneuvers. Say, for example, you're in your race car, your very, very grippy track car, and you're in a race and you initiate the brake to drift thing. I feel like in Need for Speed, when you do that, you trigger something in the game, and the game sort of starts to take over for you. It goes, okay, the person wants to brake to drift and to go around this corner. It almost feels like the game sort of takes control a little bit, and you lose control of your car while it does that maneuver. You can sometimes see the same things with like when you're doing burnouts or doing donuts. It's very set in the way that they all work. One of my biggest issues is just feeling like I'm not in control of the car in Need for Speed some of the times. You will definitely see that as I'm driving around right here. You'll see what happens when I lose control and I'm like trying to just like change lanes, for example. I hope I feel more in control in the next game, but we'll have to see. Anyways, that's enough about the cars. Let's talk about the game itself and how you actually go through the game. And let's talk about progression. This is always a super tough one because some people like to be able to grind and grind away at stuff and have to earn everything from the start and have to redo races over and over and over. Other people, for example, like everything to be given for them and just like to experience everything straight from the beginning of the game. It's super personal preference. I felt like Need for Speed Payback actually did a really, really good job of the progression in that game, so props to them. I never want to feel like I'm having to do this over and over and over again, because then it just goes into like a mindset of, I'm not playing this game for fun right now, I'm playing it for fun in the future, and that's not something that I enjoy. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. I don't want to have to feel like I'm redoing the same race over and over and over just so in a few hours I'll be able to afford a dream car. But like I said, Need for Speed Payback actually did a really, really good job of it, so props to them. What are your guys' thoughts on progression, though? Let me know in the comments down below, because I actually think it's a pretty interesting topic of discussion. Do you want a game to be super grindy where you have to redo a bunch of races? Or would you want a game that's a lot easier where you can go in, do a couple of races, and like unlock some of your favorite cars pretty early on? It's interesting for sure. Anyways, let's move it on to the next topic of discussion, and that is photo mode. There are so many people who love taking photos in these car games. It is unbelievable. These car games have awesome graphics, and when you're able to make your car your own, whether it's just with a paint job or be able to toss a full-on wide-body kit onto the thing and go balls to the wall, being able to take a photo of that car and make it look realistic as possible is just so awesome. Need for Speed definitely had a very decent photo mode in the past, but I hope they improve it in the near future. Say, for example, the Crew 2's photo mode was very cool in the fact that you can change the type of day. You had full control over the weather, so you could make it snow, rain, be sunny, whatever. Then you could change the time of day. Super awesome. That probably had one of the most legit cameras I've ever played with in a video game, where you're able to pull focus, mess around with your aperture. It's like using almost a real-life camera, which is really, really cool. So Need for Speed 2019, please don't get rid of your camera mode. It's awesome. Let's get it on to the last and final point. Multiplayer. This was a pretty big one. I think nowadays with multiplayer, we've honestly been pretty spoiled, honestly. However, I feel like no game has done multiplayer truly very well for a very, very long time. The Crew 2, for example, only had 4-player multiplayer. Need for Speed Payback only had 8-player multiplayer. Forza Horizon 4 has a multiplayer which disconnects you from sessions all the time, and Grand Theft Auto, although it has a 32 multiplayer session, you get blown up every 2 goddamn seconds, so that's not the most enjoyable thing either. I feel like definitely 12-player multiplayer is a minimum nowadays. The Crew 2, for example, I guarantee I would play it a hell of a lot more if we were allowed to have more than 4 people in a lobby. It has one of the craziest worlds that I've ever driven around in a video game before, and the fact that I can only explore that universe with 3 other people actually, is really, really annoying. And hey, Need for Speed Payback actually shipped without online free roam multiplayer, which was one of the most stupid decisions ever. I honestly believe if Need for Speed Payback actually had free roam gameplay from the start, it would have been a way, way better experience. And if you combine that with all of the other things we spoke about, I think Need for Speed 2019 could be an amazing game. We'll have to see what it includes, though. It's definitely a very, very interesting topic of discussion. We will have to see what Need for Speed has to say in the near future. We will definitely hear from them at E3/EA Play in June, so stay tuned for that. If you want to stay on top of everything Need for Speed 2019, make sure you subscribe here to the channel because you will hear it here first, and we will be covering everything you need to know about Need for Speed 2019. Until we do get some more news, though, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite feature in a racing game is, and hey, maybe I'll make another video like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and let's cross fingers that Need for Speed 2019 has some of these features, because that would be really, really awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.